LinkedIn Echo Chamber. This is ML's Like Teen Spirit. Today we have Tom with us. Tom, how are you doing?
Hi, great, thanks. How are you, John?
I'm really well. Tom, I'm collecting a map of where all my guests have been. Can you tell me where you're calling from, please?
Yeah, well, I'm calling today from Rugby, but our office is based in Warwick.
Rugby, right. Is it the Midlands? Or am I wrong?
In the Midlands, yeah. In the Midlands, yeah, near Coventry.
Got it.
Well, near Warwick as well. So.
Okay. Well, look, I don't think I've had anyone from the Midlands. So welcome. Tom, you're from Raven. We're going to kick off a call today, an easy one for me because you brought your own topic to me. So you were interested in, having a small interview and talking about AI skills and really an emerging skills gap. Before we get down to it, though, I'd love an intro from you. So could you take 60 seconds and tell everybody, what you do now and what you did before?
Yeah, so, well, I founded Raven just over 18 months ago, largely to sort of tackle some of the things I actually brought to you about the skills gap, about cultural understanding of AI and sort of how trying to help organizations both understand AI, adopt AI successfully in their businesses, and then also for us to be able to build some AI tools to tackle particularly challenging use cases as well. For my personal journey, I started as an analyst. So I did a master's degree first, and then started as an analyst, and then quickly found that not just on the statistics side, I started to enjoy automating my tasks quite a lot. Sometimes faced a bit of a barrier to their adoption, a bit of a barrier of understanding when I was trying to explain it upwards. So I sort of continued that journey into becoming a data scientist, where things get a bit more into sort of the machine learning models, but then still sometimes felt I wasn't really pushing myself as far as I'd like to. And then I gave myself a challenge and decided to leave my job to go and study for a master's in the Netherlands in artificial intelligence, where I started learning a lot more about like the philosophy and the techniques behind AI, engaged in some research projects both with the university and industry. And then after a little stint of contracting, found myself back in the UK and working out what I was doing with my future. And I think initially it was a case of having a lot of conversations with recruiters and realizing that it was very hard to explain to them what my skill set was and what my roles were, what ideal roles would look like. So I thought, well, maybe that's actually a bigger deal. And the more we sort of dug into it, the more we sort of realized it probably was. And then Raven was born, basically.
Brilliant. So look, congratulations on starting your own business. Commiserations. It's stressful, isn't it? So let's get on the skills gap then. So you're well qualified in this and you're working with customers all the time. And I suppose they're coming to you, they must be coming to you because they require some consultancy, which indicates they don't quite have what they need in-house. And it might be one of the triggers behind you recommending this conversation. So let's get down to the skills gap. Tom, we've got, what would you summarize as, the position today must be that business leaders are like relentless pressure to do something with AI. Might be my echo chamber, but it's kind of everywhere. People looking to start off. So what do you think is a configuration that they have on their teams? What resources are they likely to have today and what are they not likely to have?
Yeah, I think this varies a lot depending on organisation. You get different levels of maturity, and I think it is fair that a lot of people are feeling pressure either internally or from the news they see about AI progression to do something about AI. But realistically, you have a lot of organisations don't necessarily have data teams or have a very small data team. Don't really have anyone looking at analytics, don't really have anyone looking at how they develop their own software or their own processes, and then they're looking outwardly actively for tools. But then I guess as you reach further up, maybe maturity of using data, you start to get organizations that have started thinking about this. They've got teams that manage databases. Some of them start to have analyst teams, some of them start to have data science teams, but very few organizations have got to the point of having an AI team. And I think even if they do, these AI teams seem to largely be focused on how do we build tools that they're not they don't seem very closely linked to the actual business at the moment. It's more based on, here is AI, do something about it for us.
So you're saying there are sometimes technical people around in like a mature business. They're capable of building things, but I guess you're saying they might not be totally on the bullseye around what the business needs. So what's one of the gaps here? So you're saying there can be technical people and data scientists in companies, more mature ones, but the gap might be in working with the business stakeholders or better identifying optimal solutions. Is that something you're posing as a gap?
Yeah, I guess the gap is that is one of the gaps. Yeah, working with the stakeholders closely to actually really deeply understand the use cases and what it is that the business's objectives are when they're developing these solutions. But I guess the other side of things is when you're coding an AI solution, you actually rely a lot on the data, the insight, and the data science as well in the process. And at the moment, it's almost like the AI team is separated away, or it's either separated away and they're not really able to build that process together, or it's I feel like sometimes there is a bit of protectiveness over it. People want to say, no, this is my project, I want to own it, and it's tougher to get that engagement across different stakeholders that's needed. It's I guess it's more like, I guess really what I'm saying is it's a cultural, there's a big cultural difficulty with AI and I guess technology adoption as a whole, is in understanding that the role that all of these parts play in building successful solutions.
And when we prepared for this, Tom, you were telling me about how kind of a landing place for AI can sometimes be in the engineering areas. So because kind of AI has this technical element of working with data to somehow build better prediction, enhance customer experience, but is intrinsically technical in nature, it sometimes arrives in engineering areas. And this can, well, it's not a skills gap particularly, but it just kind of creates this problem. Can you just describe that a bit more?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, when something like AI lands on someone's desk, it can probably, if it's a decision maker, it can probably excite them initially, and then as you try and dig to understand it, there's definitely this sort of feeling that maths is not cool, for example, or statistics is not cool, or it's too difficult to understand. And the moment you start seeing the maths, it gets pushed to engineers, to computer scientists, to say, well, actually, you do this and come back and tell me what the result was, right? Which is, I mean, it sort of then removes the decision maker from the process, really. Like, and I mean, I'm not really saying decision makers need to understand deeply the mathematics behind the AI or the engineering, but you need to sort of understand what the process is and sort of engage with that a bit more and understand what is possible. Because if you're delinking all the design of your products, your capabilities from decision making, then the chances are you will have missed some potentially easy wins along the way. You could have skipped over and gone far too deep, or gone off on a tangent and not realized it, because you've not had the right feedback and you've not had the right engagement in that design.
Yeah, I recognize the problem, actually. So I I've been reading recent years, we won't talk about it too much here, but there's explainable AI became a whole thing. So explainable AI was almost a research paradigm that came out because these AI models became so complicated, it was no longer possible to sort of describe what was happening in simple terms. So there's this whole area of research that came out around that. And I suppose the bit that we're saying is when these things become so technical, another part of it is low code. So you can now produce some of the world's most technical models with 5 lines of code. I'm showing my age, Tom. Whereas it used to be 1,000 lines of code to produce something like this. But also, I'm now so old. I used to do something called an exploratory data analysis, and my boss would force me to do it. But it's really profile data, look at data, describe what you have, but you involve others kind of in that process before you even get to those technical steps. I suppose the tendency now is to be able to jump straight in at this technical end, and all of those extra bits of we're now communicating about what we're finding. that's your opportunity to develop your domain knowledge of like, well, what is this data and what are the behaviors? And I suppose it's also, I know that's also when like data quality things sometimes are flushed out, and this is, you know, that opportunity is missed by just jumping into like technical delivery.
I guess to link it back to what you're saying, what we said before about decision making not being involved. Yeah, like you will tend to miss that step if you're not heavily engaging with your stakeholders, with your decision makers. But also, if you just say to an engineer, here is a task, well, the most powerful solutions and the most easy and quick to run solutions are ones where you don't necessarily have to do that data analysis to get to push it through the model to get a decent outcome at the end. So an engineer may think, okay, actually, if you want me to, if the pressure coming from me is to build a model that performs well quickly, I will use that model. But when we've not linked in the decision maker and the decision maker hasn't explained very clearly, actually, we need a model that we understand on these terms. We need to understand what's going in for this use case, but also we need to understand the decision it makes and really sort of explain how it fits into the process and what's needed in that sense. Then, I mean, you're just going to end up with this solution where it was easiest for the engineer, it performed well on the benchmarks, but it actually delivers none of what your business and decision maker needs were.
Good. So we're kind of bigging up, you know, domain knowledge, communication skills, collaboration as a gap towards succeeding with AI.
Absolutely.
When we planned, we talked about kind of like a strategic mindset, just making sure we create the right things, or that there's someone thinking that way. Could you talk to that a little bit around just like you know, strategic use of AI tech? Like what should business leaders be thinking about, like who they need, or what roles might there be? Could you give a bit of a prediction or a forecast or a recommendation as to kind of you know, Tom, you're a consultant today, but if I parachuted you into a big brand, you know, what sorts of people would you have around to make sure you could succeed?
Yeah, and I think it probably feeds back into the pressure to be seen to be doing AI that we talked about at the start. At the moment, that tends to drive people to look for the technical skills first. And so you're building a team full of technical skills without actually thinking about very deeply about what technical skills you are actually likely to need. And I think really, for me, this comes back to the decision makers, and what's really needed is a broader understanding from decision makers about AI. They need to be able to understand what is possible with AI, what the techniques are, how it works, how the data pipeline works, how the data science process works, all of that. And then they need to be looking at what is our business problem, how would we likely tackle that, and that should inform what techniques you hire for, or what sort of technology skills you hire for, rather than at the moment it seems to be a lot of focus on we should build a team and then worry about what the use case is later.
Okay, so it's like AI literacy of senior management is critical in this.
Absolutely, and I think it's potentially not something that it involves a time commitment. It involves some engagement from them to learn things that are potentially quite difficult and quite abstract. But I can't stress how important I feel that is for people to actually get to a successful adoption.
Good. Okay, Tom, look, here's the good news. You've survived your first interview with me, so thank you for your insights on all this. So really we're saying, you know, in terms of people doing AI tasks, the focus on the soft skills, collaboration, and making sure others are involved are critical to the success. And then I think we say for the business leaders, making sure they're super AI literate and can take that knowledge into their hiring practices and team building. And Tom, we could also say that you know, any leaders out there struggling with their AI things, they could always come to Raven. How about that?
Absolutely, that's what we were founded for. So.
There we go. Tom, thanks again, ladies and gents. This has been ML's Like Team Spirit.